recording, and this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as promised, the one and only Randy Pace, live and in the flesh. And we are live on YouTube for those of you guys watching. He's waving to nobody. I got the scene set so you can't see him, but that's fine. Randy Pace is here. He is the immediate former chair of the Knox County Republican Party, or GOP, or Grand Old Party if you want to go real deep into the remembering what words and letters stand for. I don't know, we're going to talk about stuff. I have no specific agenda. I said, hey, what you doing? You want to come on the show? He said, sure, we want to talk about it. I was like, I don't know, everything. So that's the plan for tonight, everything. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, feel free to chime in and ask a question. I don't promise I'll respond to them, but I promise we'll at least read your question, but we may not answer it, depending on how ridiculous you are. Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Almostagreement.com is up and running. All the current episodes are on there. I'm working my way through the backlog. We'll get them all up there sooner or later. We're also on almost every single major podcast provider you can think of, so if you can't find us, that's your fault, not mine. Yeah, I ran out of things to say in the intro, so here we go. Me and Randy Pace, everybody. Oh, I almost timed the transition perfect. Boom!
No doubt.
Now you can see us, everybody. Looking out in it. All right. So anyway, I'm playing with my buttons and knobs. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Everybody's watching you play with your buttons and knobs.
You guys should be paying me for that, the privilege of watching me play with my buttons and knobs. So, yeah, anyway, like I said, we're live on the YouTubes for anybody jumping in. But I don't know. What's new, buddy? How's former chair life treating you?
Oh, so the technical term is immediate past chair. And actually, I serve an official capacity for the Knox County GOP still. Only as an executive board member, and I kind of sit there and watch everything go on, and when they have a question that, they're unsure about, if I have the answer, I share, and I'm watching them do great things. They have a new website. It's interactive. I encourage people to go visit knoxcountygop.com. You can actually send them emails through the website. You can sign up and get emails, volunteer, donate. Oh, man, it's just, they're on fire. Younger set of fresh ideas, new faces, and all things good in that world. But for me personally, wow. So my wife's now retired and getting ready to take a little time off and enjoy ourselves, spend a little time together that we haven't gotten to in a great number of years. All things are good. I sent a letter of intent to ask for consideration for nomination to a vacancy on the state executive committee for the state Republican Party. And that decision will be made in May. We'll see what happens with that. And beyond that, I'm yours for the next hour and a half, 2 hours.
Whatever it takes.
We're going to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about.
We are agenda-free. Well, that might not be the right phrase to use with current company. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a fun ride as of late. Watching, I'm a little surprised that the city campaign has started already. Sort of. I mean, we had a couple of mailers already go out, which I thought was weird, just timing wise. I'm not surprised. I'm with the way the world in politics and campaigning has shifted. I'm not surprised that we're going to get mailers, even for a very small turnout city race. Traditionally,
so are you getting them at your
I haven't
address?
got one here yet. No,
okay.
I'm not a city resident, so I'm not going to get anything with this.
Right.
I get the joy of being a full-on spectator for this round.
You and I both.
Yeah, and so
sort of,
but just learning some of the different intricacies that I didn't know existed, like the way the city election works, where you get to primary your district, but you get to vote for the entire city when it gets to that point. So you could, the poor District 5 people only get a general because there is no District 5 primary this year. So if you're in the city District 5, you have nothing to do in August, but come November, you get to vote for 5 different people for the 5 different other seats. And so I thought, it's
interesting.
Yeah, it's just a different method, and I don't, I can't remember. Chris Davis was here, and he told me a little bit of the backstory, and I don't remember who did it, but the phrase was so that a district can't elect a radical. That was the reason. Whoever the mayor was at the time that initiated this change in the voting laws in the city, that was their reason for why.
This sounds like they were trying to shut people out.
I don't know.
And
then I also learned that my disdain, and I yelled at Matt Shears last week about this, and I can yell at you about it now because you tried to explain it away to me too, is that I'm not allowed to be on the election commission.
You're not allowed to be on the election commission. About the party thing.
I am fully disqualified.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I learned, and you might find this interesting, I learned from Chris Davis that happened when the Democrats were in charge of the state, and that they started it. And Matt didn't have much to say in response to that part.
It matters who governs. So you had Chris Davis on, and I'm going to tell you, what a great guy. He's just a genuine individual anyway, personally.
Right.
And his skill sets really do make him, the best that Knox County has right now to administrate our elections.
See, I would argue I might be able to do it better, but I'm not allowed
really?
to.
Well, no, wait a second. That's right. He's the administrator.
He's an employee, right?
He's not
an elected
the commissioner.
An appointed body. You're correct. I rescind my prior statement. I mean, I don't know. I still could, for funny's sake, I could argue that I could do it better, but that's not the point. I was more pitching the fit about I'm not allowed to be.
Yeah, I get it. I understand what you're saying. So here, I'll put it to you this way. So
time out. Just a preface for you guys listening out there. This is going to be a Republican, and both Republicans and Democrats are going to give good excuses of why this is a good idea. And this is one thing, and one of those fun, rare things, like we did the first time I had the party chair battle, where something that both parties agree on, and that is excluding others. But anyway, go ahead.
No, actually, that's not. I wasn't going to advocate for that process. Do I think they should prohibit independents from serving on the election commission? No, and actually, I think just by and large, state of Tennessee needs to open their primary elections. I'm not certain that lifting the restriction on the number of signatures required to get another party on the ballot is necessarily the way to go. However,
that's going on the state right now.
Yeah.
I just got a note from somebody. We were having no audio on the YouTube. That's my fault. It should be fixed. Anyway, continue.
Is it fixed now? All right. So anyway, I think that opening up the election commission to people who call themselves independent or non-partisan is not a bad idea. However, comma.
Right. So
what do you do? So what do you do when that individual?
Told me one time, you didn't say it exactly right, but somebody told me one time that when you're talking to somebody, if they start out talking about whatever, as soon as they say the word "but," then you just erase everything they just said.
Oh, okay.
Which, however, is the same thing.
Well, but's usually what I sit on. And all right. So here's the deal. If somebody says, okay, I'm an independent and I want to serve on that body and we're underrepresented, quite frankly, independents as a voting bloc, people tend not to gravitate to one party or another unless they have to. And in the state of Tennessee, they kind of have to because for primary elections, it's one party or the other. There's always the general election. You can wait and vote in a general election. If there's no independent on the ballot, what do you do during a primary? Do you vote for a Democrat or a Republican? You can do either in the state of Tennessee. So nobody's really getting shut out. You can you can be an independent, vote Republican for 3 state primary election cycles, call yourself a Republican and be appointed to the election commission as the Republican representative.
They have different. Is that party bona fide, or is that election commission version of bona fide for that 3 elections?
So the
timeout. I never thought in my entire life that I would use the word bona fide non-ironically. Just throwing that out there. Like I always anytime I've ever said it prior to probably the Ostermanis thing, I don't think I'd ever use the phrase unironically. I always here's a bona fide whatever. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, sorry. You see where mine's at. I'm all over the place right now.
I do, and honestly, I'm not crazy about the term bona fide. I mean, you and I have talked about it many times. You're either a member of the Republican Party or you're a regular Republican voter, and there's a distinct difference. And I agree with you. I don't think that difference necessarily should preclude you from serving on the election commission. Here's one of the problems that the legislature did engage in, and we're convinced that they were solving a problem. More government, more laws, more regulation, generally, in my experience, doesn't solve a problem.
Right,
it just makes people feel fuzzy.
Right. And either equal number, if not greater number of problems on the other side.
Yeah, probably. So we're almost in agreement. Honestly, I think we're in full agreement.
All right, so
you should be able to serve.
You brought it up. My libertarian friends in the state are trying to push. There's a bill going through right now trying to lower the number of petition signatures required to add a party to the ballot. And if I heard you correctly, you implied that you don't know that necessarily that's the right thing to do. So tell me more about why you feel that way.
So if you can't...
Or did I hear it correctly?
Well, no, you kind of heard it correctly. So the threshold is a percentage of votes cast in the last gubernatorial election. And the independents or libertarians throughout the state have undergone a couple of efforts, serious efforts, to reach that threshold, and they haven't been able to reach it. So what are they gaining by if they made it zero and they got there, what have they gained? They get on the ballot as that party. Are they really going to start? Have they gained anything? Are they going to win elections because now they run a primary? I'm just not sure. Because actually they're setting themselves up for having to spend more money. It's easier just to run in a general election.
But they're also setting themselves up for access to money, or at least access to funding, because then they get the election commissions to run their primaries for them to help them do the same thing the other parties do as far as, well, not that there's a overwhelming number of libertarians running for a certain seat, but when and if the case needs that they need to primary it, they now have the option to let the election commission primary it. And I don't know, that'd be a good conversation to have with Chris Davis again about the costs of running an election and how much running a primary costs. Obviously, adding a different primary to a certain ballot is not going to cost
adding a party to a ballot is not going to increase costs for running the election.
But so again, just
it's de minimis.
Right, for conversation's sake, in a very small picture of it, say my District 4 here, Todd's moving out of town, so we won't get Todd running against Kyle next time, but Kyle's running to keep his seat. I run as a libertarian, and we'll say, what was his name? It's gonna drive me nuts now. Anyway, Billy, whatever, is running as a Democrat, and then we all have primaries in the process. Well, if we have 4 independents and me as a libertarian in the current system, that's we're going to have 6 on the ballot, 7 on the ballot because we're all independents except for the 2-party people. But let's say 3 or 4 of those independents are actual libertarians, and the Libertarian Party is trying to narrow down that field because they want to put one libertarian up because theoretically, if you have multiple libertarians on the same ticket, they're going to split votes, which is just going to give more weight to the Republican or Democrat on the same ballot item. Well, if the election commission is going to do the primary for them, that saves that party money in that process. Now, that's a weird, rare, at least currently theoretically unlikely scenario, but that would be the point. One of the points of wanting to be on the ballot, and not to mention that L stands for something where I doesn't. That's the big one to me. Is L stands for something. Now, most people don't necessarily know what a libertarian is.
Wait, I'll just say it. Does it stand for something? What does it stand for?
I mean, it stands for what its principle and base and pillars and platforms and all the things I've talked about with the other parties are probably as consistent, if not, they're at least as consistent, if not more consistent than the major parties. And again, it's one of those things, you use the phrase all the time, and I get it, and I understand, I conceptually, I get the idea is that there's a difference in an elected official that was elected as a Republican and and a Republican Party member.
Sure.
I can rationalize the phrase, because one of the things I ask Matt at the same time, it's can you point to an elected official that I could say, that you could say is a Republican, is a member of the party, and that they act upon as a Republican, and then you have, it's it's one of those, like, you can kind of talk it, you can talk down how specific they are in their Republican values by saying, well, they're not just representing the Republican Party, they're representing all their constituents. So that's why, even though this is something the Republican Party's against, they still voted for it, or something like that. And so, like, I don't know. It's at least a core set of principles that doesn't necessarily uniformly apply when in position. Sure, libertarians can cover that base too. I
think they can, and so again, I think we're in agreement. I think the state of Tennessee ought to have closed primaries, and what that is you actually have to declare, what party you're going to affiliate with. And when you're a candidate, if you're going to seek an endorsement of a political party, you have to be a member of that party. A lot of times we get wrapped around Democrat and Republican. I know Democrats that are great people. I really do. Just because they're Democrats doesn't make them a bad person. And even as an elected official, I've seen many Democrats, vote with Republicans and vice versa. So I think all too often people use party affiliation or lack thereof as a wedge to drive people apart, when we should really be using it to further our and again, I'll use the word ideology, but that, in a lot of circles has negative connotations. I believe that less government is better, whereas somebody on the left might disagree with me. We need more government to help those less fortunate. Well, I think many people have been raised out of their impoverished circumstance in far greater numbers when you implement government policies that are less restrictive rather than more restrictive. Anyway, like I said, independents and libertarians, if you want a green party, if you want a red party, if you want a dog and cat party, put them on the ballot. We could do away with primaries and let the parties do them themselves. We talked about this, right, on a previous show.
That's kind of where I'm at.
At the county level, we have the ability to do that without, permission. The governing body for the county party can say, we're going to close our primaries. But that doesn't apply to state level offices. The state party would,
right,
but the state party is restricted by the state legislature, because now you're talking about crossing political boundaries. Knox County, Davidson County, right, Shelby County, blah, blah, blah.
Right. All those other little counties in between that aren't that important, but whatever.
No, they're very important. They're very important.
I know. They take my tax money and spend it on their schools.
So, yeah,
I mean, it's a fact. It was a little hyperbolic of a statement or whatever, but it is a fact that as described to me, is we are what they call a donor county as far as school money goes.
Well, of course we are. As academia spends way too much of the government's money on nonsense, plain and simple. Cut their budget in half, you end up with a better product.
I don't know what to do, but I don't like it's like healthcare, this K through 12 specifically. I think there's other issues at play in education, but K through 12 specifically, like, it's one of those that, like, everybody agrees there's a problem. This isn't working the way we're doing it, and this little inch in one way or the, like, it's just slowly inching one way. Like, I mean, I got into a big argument on one of the Facebook groups. It's like, teachers don't get paid enough. It's like, well, how much they need to get paid? The school budget isn't big enough. Well, how big does it need to be? Because if you can't give me a number, then it's always bigger.
The teachers' salaries are not taking the lion's share of the money in academic costs. They're just not. It's taken up in administration and bureaucracy. Our legislatures and our school districts need to work better together. First thing out of the school district or academia's mouth is, we don't have enough money. So the legislature tries to put in place more money, and it's just not going to teach children, or it's not going to teacher salaries. It's going to more bureaucratic administration.
I mean, like,
let's test the lead in the water, and let's do it on this frequency. We've never found lead in the water in this school, and we test other sites,
right? And then they,
then
they could say
for water quality, but we do it in schools because it's for the children.
We spent more money on the school. Aren't you happy? No, that's not what we want you to spend the money on. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So and unfortunately, the people that control those academic institutions are generally from those academic institutions. So they're, I've been a teacher for 20 years. I'd make a great school board member. No, actually, I don't think you would. Unless, of course, over that 20 years time, you realize that, hey, we're not doing it very well.
Yeah, I mean, that's one that I'm like, of all the things that I've dove way past my depth in the last year trying to do this podcast, school board stuff is where I go the blankest, the fastest. Like, Mr. Ron McPherson, who's been very gracious and very helpful, and he's tried really hard, and he insulted every single person in Knox County by telling me that I'm one of the more educated people in Knox County as far as the school board budget goes. That's a bad rap for the rest of you guys. I mean,
so listen, there are many brilliant individuals working within our academic institutions. Their skill sets are far beyond anything on a particular subject matter than I'll ever attain. And I freely and openly admit that. But when it comes to government function, government's role in providing adequate education and the resources that it takes, I'm good. I mean, I may not know exactly how photosynthesis works, but I don't need to. If my focus is making sure that everybody has the opportunity to get that education, to learn that information, then I'm happy to put those people in place to teach it. But I don't need the level of bureaucracy and waste and poor management that we have right now to accomplish.
Right.
That.
I don't know. I haven't dropped it through, but it might have been you who's telling me about it, that like of the 8-9 school board members, 8 of them are teachers or former teachers.
Yeah, something like that. I tend not to focus so much on the school boards because until we fix what we're structurally facing in our government, and I don't mean the elected school board members, I mean legislative government, people in the municipal government, locally, state house, nationally, and we're not going to fix nationally in my lifetime.
The big thing for me that was such a struggle trying to get into it is like, because we got into it during the primaries last year,
sure,
and we were trying to figure out who's what and whatever, and what got me, what probably propelled me deeper into doing the podcast and talking to more people than anything, is watching people campaign on schools. And I think about it and I go, okay, yeah, I want people that care about what's going on in the schools. And then I think about it and I go, but we have a school board that's separate from the commission, separate from the council, separate from the mayor's office. What is,
what's the holdup? What's the problem?
What is a District 4 commission? No, what does a District 4 commissioner have to do with the school district? Nothing. They sign the budget, which again, to my understanding, is a fixed percentage of the total county budget, more or less. And as long as the budget's not completely out of control, the mayor's office will sign it, and the commissioners will sign as follows. So, what does a commissioner have to do with the school board? What do they have to do with what's going on in the schools?
So the county and state legislature writes the rules. Okay, so if the schools say there ought to be a law, now they're holding our legislators accountable.
I don't even think statewide. I agree with you, but I don't know if that counts on the local level. I don't know that the commission can do anything with the schools except for sign checks.
Well, all right. So, the school boards are getting more money than just what is statutorily required.
Correct.
And those decisions are being made locally.
That's true, because that's the whole grant. The grant approval thing has to go through the commission. That's true. Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we asked a question? I'll give you an example, and this is a low-level one. The Haslam family donated money to one of the local schools for music equipment. And in order to get the music equipment, you had to use this particular trucking company, and you had to get it from this particular company that had the music equipment that you wanted, and the cost was greater than what the school could have actually gotten it for.
Right.
Well, why? Why didn't somebody on county commission go, well, what are we doing here? What is it? What's the goal? You've got money. Was there strings attached? If there were strings attached, maybe we shouldn't be taking that money. If the Haslams want to give $25,000 to the school, and then they want the school to spend additional funds or more than the going rate, okay,
right.
Something's wrong
right,
with not asking the question as a sitting county commissioner why we're doing that.
Right, because it's politically unadvantageous to question receiving funds for the school. I mean, realistically, because that's one of those that paints the picture that they're like,
that's right. He voted no against this.
Right, he said no to this grant from running the example. The Haslam family said they give $50 million to the school, and he said, are you sure? No, he said, well, why? What are we going to do with it? What do we have to do with it? Like, I get it. But it goes back to the thing. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it's the universal theme, whether it's spoken or not, in almost every episode I talk about, including with elected officials that I've talked to, is we as a whole don't know how this thing works.
Well, all right. So, and who's supposed to be teaching us? Well, aside from our parents, and believe me, my family taught me enough. And the general theme was, don't piss on my shoes and tell me it's raining. Okay, you can apply that to everything in life, including what your government does. If your government says, we're going to buy an apple, and the apple's only going to cost us $2.7 million, and you look at them and you go, I can buy it at a farm stand for a nickel. I can buy it at a grocery store for 10 cents. I can get it in a can already prepared. I can buy it in a little cup in applesauce. Why are we paying $1.7 million for it? Well, don't they pat you on the head and say, don't
worry about it.
Don't worry. We got it under control.
Right. It's like Max on the Big Show. We were talking.
We're going to pay prevailing wage.
Right. We were talking on the Big Show a while ago about Defense Department spending, and he's like, I remember he is a Marine. They're always Marines, whatever.
Once a Marine, always.
Yeah,
that thing.
But he was talking about it, and he's like, I can't remember what the gun, like M5, I think is what he said it was. I'm not a super gun guy. I've got my handful that I need for what I want to do, but he's like, I could go down the street, right now to the gun shop or whatever, and I could get an M5, which is the rifle that was given to me when I was in the Marine Corps, for like $750. It's like, but somehow the Marine Corps is paying $2,000 a piece. Tell me how that works.
So, is it the exact same one?
I don't know. Well, I mean, probably not, because the Marine Corps has probably got a fully automatic where they can't sell a fully automatic.
There you go.
Which is probably, and realistically, it probably is the exact same gun. They just took one knob off of a gear so that it can't go fully. Yeah. Right. But making it legal should make it more expensive if you have to do a modification to what the original gun was, I would think. So it's normal business practice.
So staying on the theme of grant funding, before I came over here, I don't know whether it was a commercial, a news clip, or what. Some young girl's talking about making grant funding available for whatever her shtick was. It was on in the background. I really wasn't paying that much of attention, but she was talking. It was like she was talking up, children can apply for a grant and get money to do X. Save the whales. I don't know what it was. And I thought to myself, if the general public actually knew what grant funding was all about in this country and how your government manipulates.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree. I thought grant money was free money, too.
Yeah. Jeez. It's bad.
I know.
It's bad.
I know. I disappoint you. I'm supposed to be smarter than that.
No. You don't disappoint me. Listen, it's a learning curve. Not everybody understands everything. We have elected officials that run for office, have no idea. They get there and they go, oh, I didn't know. And then they go, oh, crap, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing, too. And that's one of those, like, I go back and forth on how nefarious I think the origin of it is. I've come to the conclusion that whether it's state, federal, local, whatever it is, we have a state of Tennessee. We've been here for 240 years or whatever. You got 240 years of little ads here, little subtractions there, ads here. And then, I make the complaint, it's too damn complicated to function with, the book that is living in the state of Tennessee. If you're going to try to go down the rabbit hole, you need to be a lawyer. You need to have a lawyer on hand and all this stuff. And it's like, because one of my big complaints, one of the top level complaints historically out of me in one of the problems in governance to me is simple things, something that should be a simple thing. Like, I'm going to do a fundraiser. I want to do a fundraiser. I'm going to host it at my business. And absolutely, it is a promotion for my business as well. It is raising funds for, I think we used Wounded Warrior Project was our target organization. I like to play poker. I got a lot of friends that like to play poker. I want to do a poker tournament. Well, this is in my business. It is a fundraiser, but this is in my business. So I want to be extra careful. I don't want to do this thing, go out and promote it and spend a bunch of money trying to get this thing going to, I don't know, get arrested. Not
Secretary of State's website. All the info's right there.
I called his office. I called the district attorney of the county. I think I think I got all the way up to the assistant to the attorney general of the state of Tennessee. And the answer I got was, I don't think they would break it up.
All right. So you have to go and read it for yourself, because if you go and ask somebody a specific question,
is right, because the answer
there's so much of it, nobody knows.
Because the answer
even
is,
the people that are supposed to don't.
Right, the answer is ask your lawyer. And really what you're doing, you're not asking your lawyer if it's illegal or illegal. You're asking your lawyer.
Can I get away with it?
No. You're asking your lawyer is, do you think you can win this if you're defending me on it? That's what you're asking your attorney when you're asking him if something is legal or illegal. It's hey buddy, I want to do this thing. If I do this and the cops come, can you keep me out of jail? That's what you're asking on whatever it is. Can I walk? Can I cross the street at this intersection from this corner to this corner? If you ask your attorney that, you're not asking whether it's legal or not. It's whether, if the cops arrest you for it, will he get you out of jail? Is he capable of it? Does he think there is precedent and all that stuff that he can argue that in court and get you out of jail? It's not a question of legal or illegal. It's never a question of illegal or illegal. And that's the point of my problem, is that it's so big, it's so complicated, it's got layers and layers and layers. We were doing something on the CARES Act or the PACT Act, one of the COVID-19 acts. We were talking about it. Yeah. So I went to the Senate.gov or whatever. I pulled the bill up. We were reading through it and talking about some different stuff. Get to one section of it. We're reading about it, and gratefully we are in the we're in the 21st century and we have technology and stuff. And so there's all these hyperlinks in the text, and that hyperlink is to the reference. And so it's like, this word, like this, and then the legalese that it speaks, and then you hit the hyperlink and it gives you the definition of this thing. And then inside that definition, there's another hyperlink. And we go like four or five hyperlinks deep to get one sentence of a 6,432 page bill that just got signed into law.
You know who writes legislation, right? Attorneys.
Lobbyists.
Attorneys.
Lobbyists, business, attorneys.
Lobbyists have attorneys, yes. So the state...
Knoxville, the police department.
The state legislature, what do they deal with? Anywhere from 700 to 900 bills every cycle.
I think Mazzy told me 1,600.
Yeah.
1,200 or something like that.
It can go that high,
multiple thousand, or 1,000 plus.
But, so a lot of those they're changing one word, or... They're correcting a difference, so we wrote this law, and now we've got to change this law, so that's all we're doing. So it's a simple administrative function. So that's what a lot of those bills are. But there is a lot of legislation that gets introduced, and I look at it, and it's like they're not using the hyperlinks.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
By the way, why are we doing this?
You got to go to the library, not just any library, the state law library, and then go find this book on this shelf. Go to this page, go to this line, and that's what the hyperlink's doing. Like, I can't imagine this 50 years ago trying to do anything functional.
So, and that's why we probably had less laws.
Maybe. But I mean, my point is, but to go back to the beginning of it, the point is, like, I go back and forth on how nefarious I think it is. But the point is, I think 240 plus years old state or whatever, we have all this stuff that piles up and piles up and piles up. And I don't think it was intentionally made complicated. but I think there's very little incentive to uncomplicate it, because those people that know how to play inside of it don't have as much scrutiny because we don't get it. I don't understand it. People don't understand it. So they can do things like change 3 words in a document of, I don't know, a couple hundred pages. And what that does to the entirety of what that document did in the first place, I don't know. That guy doesn't know.
You understand that they threw a party when I left New Jersey and came back to my home state.
Because
right?
you were burning books? What?
Well, no, because we would sit there.
Hold on,
something would come up.
I didn't mean burning books like in the Nazi way. I know it's bad to make Nazi reference. I meant burning books like you were taking things down and simplifying them, so burning all the law books that you don't need anymore. That's
we had a sign ordinance, and it needed to be updated. And I went and redlined the whole thing, and they're like, "Well, the state law says, time out. Why does the local ordinance need to address that here if there's already a state law in the books?" Well, I don't, and I was like, well, we're not going to. They're done. And what used to take 2 or 3 weeks to craft and vet an ordinance takes all of 10 minutes with a red pen. Truly. And
right.
If the state legislature started looking at it that too often, the public says there ought to be a law. Oh, we need another law. We need to fix this. We need to address. Hold on a second. Does the entire state of Tennessee need to address that, or does a local community need to address it?
Well, see, that's the other one. I think that even as deep as I've gotten, I'm not exactly sure where the layers sit. What can, because I mean, still with the Board of Health thing, even in past tense, I still don't know that they can do what they did.
Yeah, sometimes I believe, truly, I wake up I've said it a million times. I wake up in the morning, I don't want to know what I know about your government. I believe that
we can go back in time on that statement. Because I remember when you texted me that the first time, I was like, "Oh shit, we got some deep dark secrets," and then it was just, it's just
no, it is. There
stuff.
are a lot of deep dark secrets.
Yeah, but I thought you were going to tell me about the aliens and that kind of stuff.
No. I believe there are people that work and have worked in the halls of government for decades that don't want the public to know.
No,
they truly don't.
Because I think that's my
because
point.
If they did it, they'd be out of a job.
Yeah, I think that was my point. Is that it is strongly disincentivized for them to fix the complications because they're one of a very short list of people that can maneuver inside of it, and being able to maneuver inside of it is a good thing if you know what you're doing, because nobody gets to watch what you're doing, or if they are, they can't see what you're doing. They can watch you do it, but it's like, I don't know.
So I had a conversation with a numbers guy one time. The guy was an actuary. He was brilliant.
Oh, I thought you meant like from the Bible, the book of Numbers.
No,
okay.
No, I'm not that old. you got to stop doing that to me, man. I'm not that old. So
you're the one that's how many times have you retired?
Which time?
That's what I said. How many times have you retired?
I retired from one spot twice. Anyway, so
I'm just saying, if you've retired multiple times, I think that counts as you're old. Anyway,
yeah, I'm old. So he's a numbers guy, just brilliant, and to watch him, you hand him a document and he goes through it, and then he makes a statement or asks questions that you quite frankly would have never fathomed. So I had him look at something one time, and we were talking about it, and he was like, I don't understand. I said, well, let me put it to you this way. There are 50 states, right? Yes. There's 2 senators in each state, right? Yes. And he looked at me and he went, wow. And I was like, yeah, wow. Think about that for a minute. There are 100 guys in this country that are truly controlling the everyday life of 350 plus million people.
Right.
That's a tremendous responsibility. Can they do it as an individual? No, they need other people. Well, I mean, yeah, they need other people if their job is to do what? What is a senator's job? Think about that for a minute. What is his job? He's supposed to represent the people's interest. Well, if he's in Washington, he's worried about doling out hundreds of millions of dollars to a bridge to nowhere. somehow I don't think he's focused on the people's interest. Some of the problems we face as a nation are complex, and they're difficult. I'm not minimizing it. But generally speaking, day to day, the people we elect to public office serve our interests, not their own, and not the government's interest. And we've gotten away from that. So right now, the model is we have 100 U.S. senators. Maybe we need more U.S. senators. And maybe we need to break that up just by sheer size. When we set up our government, all right, so every time we grow as a state, we get more representation at the state level, do we not? I mean, look at Knox County, 450,000 people. At one time, we had 19 county commissioners. Now we have 11. Over the next 20 years, Knox County is going to grow considerably. We could conceivably add commission districts simply by growth. But we haven't done that at the national level. Why? Because they're supposed to be focused on national issues, not state issues. Yeah, the country grows. At what point, what number do we need to reach when we say we need to add 1 or 2 senators to every state? Because we've grown as a nation so large that our senators don't actually do the work that they were elected to do. They've got an army of unelected bureaucrats functioning as an elected official.
But I mean, it'd still be even state by state. So it would be every state adds 1, so they go to 3, and so we have 150 in Senate. Is that what you're talking about? So it still keeps the even number?
No, yes, you would still have to have equal representation. My point is, at one time when we elected state senators, they were able to manage the work that they were elected to do.
I don't know, because again, it goes, my failure, my terrible civics grade notwithstanding, it's like, what is, and this is something that that has major philosophical implications depending on who's sitting across from me. Is what is the role of the federal government?
Well, it's not affordable housing, that's for certain.
And that's one of the things you want to talk about. Growing the federal government by numbers. I get what you're after, and if we're going to grow it, that would be the preferred way. But it's like to me, it's what is it? National defense and interstate commerce. And what do those things mean? And because what are the issues for me? Okay, so perfect example. This podcast, by definition, is interstate. Anything that touches the internet is interstate by definition. Yes, Supreme Court precedents in place.
Yes,
I have 2 businesses. Well, 1 business, 2 locations in Knox County, right? I have 0 internet sales. I do 0 online sales of any sort, anything like that. I'm an interstate business. I have customers that are on their way from Kentucky to Georgia or something like that stop in because they need the products I sell. I have, customers that are from North Carolina that come into the state to do some work because they have some temporary work here in town, and they find me and they use me for the services that I provide and the products that I carry. But I'm an interstate, so I'm subject to the Interstate Commerce Clause, and I have to do jump through all the hoops and stuff like that. And I can't get a good explanation why that makes sense.
Well, all right. So if you're looking at me to solve that problem,
no, I'm not. I'm just saying.
All right, no, wait. Let me rephrase that. If you're looking at me to tell you that it makes sense, I can't, because I'm going to be brutally honest with you. We are overtaxed and overregulated. Our federal government is far too big. And when I say we need more elected representation in Washington, I mean that. I mean people accountable to us actually doing the work, not unaccountable individuals doing the work. So, right, and that applies locally. Right, I mean, 450,000 people, we got 11 county commissioners. What are the county commissioners actually doing? We elected them to keep us steered in the right direction. They're governing. And for the state of Tennessee and the county of Knox, I think we do it extremely well compared to some of the other 7 states that I've lived in. Some of the other states I've lived in are they're a mess.
Right, Georgia's voting laws are like top 5 in the country as far as strictness, but they're fine. It's Georgia that's the problem. New Jersey, though, and they're tough. They're tough voting laws.
New Jersey, Illinois, Florida. Look, there are places in this country where your business cannot thrive. Your business is owned by a corporation because it cannot thrive. There's just not enough meat left on the bone. And it's a balance. We can quickly get there. We got to stop over-regulating. And while I understand the need for an interstate commerce clause, I'm not certain it applies to your business.
I don't like. That's the thing. It's like what again? It's one of those things that maybe back in the day when it was put into place, it may have had good intentions or even a functional good means.
Yeah, I don't think we had the internet then.
But it's like and so like I had my lawyer.
The government has not kept up.
Right, I had my buddy on here who's a lawyer, and he focuses on like civil rights lawsuits and stuff like that. And so like he pays attention to the Supreme Court. I had him on when we were talking about Amy Coney Barrett and other stuff like that. He was explaining it to me and why it's that way. And it's like, well, like the immediate thing for me was the question is like, why would the Supreme Court do that? Like, because it's all Supreme Court precedents that put it in place. Why would Supreme Court say that if you have a Facebook page as a business, you sell apples that you grow on your farm in Granger County, Tennessee, and you only sell them in your farm in Granger County, Tennessee. You don't ship them across state lines. Nobody ships anything to you that you resell, nothing like that. But you have a Facebook page to interact with your customers on. You're under the Interstate Commerce Clause. And it's like, why? Why would the Supreme Court want that?
So I think you need to attack it from a First Amendment standpoint, and I'll tell you why. So a friend of mine argued a case in front of the New Jersey Supreme Court, and then the case was heard by the U.S. Supreme Court, and it had to do with billboards. And I'm going to tell you, brother, it was straight out of the box a First Amendment issue, tied to a First Amendment issue. There was a community that wanted to restrict the placement of a billboard, not because of what it said, free speech, but they wanted to restrict where the billboard was placed. Had ownership of the property. Nothing offensive was going on the billboard. There was a zoning restriction that said we don't want that kind of signage. Well, why? They could not make a compelling argument that overweighed his right to free speech to have that billboard in place.
Okay, so just to try to follow it, so zoning is created by the local governance, though, right?
Well, you would think.
I mean, that would be that's the question at play here. If to me, like, within all sorts of things, but I mean, if the
states that weigh in on zoning issues and apply it to the state unilaterally are the ones that have the problems. In Tennessee, we have very little of that issue. It's getting worse. Recode. Oh my gosh. There are things going on that are pushing us in directions we ought not be going.
Because for me, like one of the things that I truly up there with school board budget, like understanding planning commissions and zoning. The point of zoning, I guess, is like I always joke. Like I remember playing SimCity when I was a kid, like fun game, whatever. And you have the green boxes and the yellow boxes and the blue boxes for your industrial, commercial.
I'm shaking my head up and down. Right, and I have no idea because I didn't play SimCity.
Because you were back there in the book of Job or whatever.
There are intricacies in the game that,
and that's right. Because again, that's one of the things I don't understand. Is like what is the point of zoning or planning? And the point is to allow for growth and not have to have a residential complex right next to a paper mill that smells like cow fart or dog farts right, and
something
wood
like
chips
that.
Or whatever.
Something like that. Yes.
And so it's to try to make it a more palatable community or whatever. And it's like I get that, but it's always like almost as soon as one of those comes out, it's always it's always before commission about an adjustment to or that's half of what do they do?
Use on review, and we need an exception to that rule because X.
And so it's like to me it's like, well, either we need to fully manage exactly what you can do on your property that you own, or not manage it at all, because apparently we're not doing either. So we're doing nothing.
Very well. No, we're doing either. We're just not doing it very well.
Right, because it's like, again, the point being is like we're going to spend years developing a planning diagram for a county, and then as soon as that diagram hits the hits the floor and goes into effect, it's exception and
you mean like the 5 houses per acre they approved, in a rural area of West Knoxville that I went before the commission on before they changed their name. And I was told people want walkable communities. I was like, they're planning for 20 years from now when there's high rises around my, 1.5 acre lot. I don't get it either. All right. And it really doesn't make any sense. But there's a planner who's getting paid very good money to make those decisions based on which way the wind's blowing.
And that's what's weird to me about it. Because like, I have a particular here for anybody out there that's in the North Shore area, and we have their North Shore Corridor Association that's been fighting.
Not my backyard association.
Sort of. I mean, like there's both parties are dirty, or not dirty in like the corrupt sort of way, but like dirty tactics to play the game, but because that's how you have to play the game or whatever. Because Compass reported on it recently that like. One of the things this developer wanted to put in like 600 unit development or whatever on this stretch over just up the street from me here, and the neighborhood was like, the neighbors and stuff were like, we can't fit that and blah blah blah, and so it's been a big fight back and forth, and they got approval from the commission ended up approving it at some point or something like that, and then the association sued about it and went to some court, and it got the approval got revoked because part of their plan was to put in their own wastewater treatment facility, and that was not zoned. And it's like, this is the level we're going to, because nobody cares about a wastewater facility. It's not about a wastewater facility. Realistically, that's a good thing. If a developer
you have to have wastewater and right.
If a developer is willing to do that because he wants to put it in there, then that developer is willing to work with you on what's going on here. The problem is
most developers are
right. North Shore can't handle the traffic. The schools that the development would go into can't handle the population, and that's the real question. But those ones aren't actionable defenses for why I want to keep them out. And some of it absolutely is. I don't want that. I don't want the traffic driving through my neighborhood. I don't want those neighbors. Whatever. That's part of it too, for sure. But the level that the vitriol and dirty plays of the game goes to is that we're going to pitch a fit about a wastewater treatment facility because that's one thing we know we can get them on, instead of it being, this isn't what we can't function. Like the real story of it is we can't handle the traffic, period. The schools can't handle the kids. We can't handle the traffic. That's what's going on here. And the problem to me is that the commission approved it knowing that, and there's nothing in place to fix that, the actual problems. Because we need the houses for sure. We need the development for all this incoming. We are growing quickly. I got a friend of mine who's been trying to buy a house for over a year now. And it's a house he either can't afford it, or he could have afforded it a couple of years ago, but he can't afford it because it's move-inable, or it's a shithole, and he's going to have to spend a bunch. He can afford it, but he's going to have to spend a bunch of money getting it livable. And he's got a 6-month-old, and he doesn't want to move into a house that he has to renovate immediately. And those are your options right now, unless you get into the high bracket or the real low bracket. But if you're looking in the 100 to 250 in Knox County right now, you're either buying a shithole and going to spend the next 5 years cleaning it up, or you're going to pay $400 or $500 for it, because that's the way the market's working right now. And so we need inventory. That's it's such a weird thing to call houses inventory to me, but we need the inventory. And so this would be a great thing for that need, but all the things around it don't exist.
All right. So here's the funny thing. I say funny thing. It's not funny. It is the nature of the beast. So if you don't plant the infrastructure beforehand, if you don't look 20 years out, you're going to run into these problems down the road. Because who wants to live in Loudoun County and commute to Knoxville? Well, there are people...
Sheriff's deputies, because they can't afford it.
There are people that live 100 miles from, where they work.
Right.
And that idea in this part of the country is foreign. Now, the people in Loudoun County will drive 20, 30 minutes to the grocery store. The people in Knox County,
Oh, it's like 2
in
minutes.
different parts
I'm pissed.
of Knox County will not.
Right.
So again, insofar as the infrastructure goes, you got to make it. It really comes down to, what are you willing to do? Now you have to look at, we got to widen this road. What would happen if we widen North Shore? Can we? There are wetlands involved. There's all this other stuff involved. Well, there are portions you can, there are portions you can't. Now you're talking about eminent domain and a taking, and, all of these things have to be considered. Well, for me, it goes back. I'll use one of them old sayings my parents and grandparents used to say, don't worry about the mule, just load the wagon. Or put another way, don't put the cart before the horse. We put the cart before the horse. We didn't expect
who's the cart,
25 years ago or 40 years ago Knox County would be where it's at.
Right, and I agree, but it's one of those. It's like,
so now what do we do?
Right,
what's the solution?
Right, that's the problem that I'm seeing too, is because it's like, the demand is there. The people that own the properties that are selling the properties to these developers, they sold them, so they're happy, I guess. But these developers are in a weird spot because they're trying to, and we like to demonize a developer from time to time, which I'm sure there's some shady ones out there, and that's fine. But
how about flying cars?
Where are they? I want mine.
Well,
I don't want one.
Wouldn't that be a solution?
I don't know. I'll tell you one of my things. One of my very non-libertarian things that I'm truly into is that shopping center down next to campus where the Walmart barely survived. That model of building needs to be normal in Knox County. I think that's something that we need to push all over county, especially in city limits, but countywide. I think if you're going to build a new shopping center development, parking underneath. How much of Kingston Pike is a parking lot? How much of Middlebrook is a parking lot?
Let me ask you this. All right, so you're saying that, and I don't disagree with you.
And I try to be a libertarian.
So there's 3 businesses on Kingston Pike with big parking lots, and they don't want to give their business up. They don't want to give their parking lot up.
Right.
Okay.
I said new development.
Okay, new development. So there's a new development right behind my house. My property lines, I've mentioned this before, lines up to city property, stuff that got annexed.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So here, let me ask you this. I paid for my home. I got 1.5 acres. Nothing prevents the county from striking a deal with the city to rezone all that property out there and ultimately take a part of my property so they can build larger buildings to accommodate growth and more population. Should we do that?
Well, they can take it for non-infrastructural development.
If they needed to, if we grew so large, we didn't have any place to put people anymore.
I mean, if that's
and
the case,
they want
right. I mean, market value would be part of the thing, and how do you value the market? But I mean, that would be the minimum. They got to pay you for it, and it's got to be real market value.
I don't want to leave. It's my home. I don't want to leave, and I don't want you to have my property. Well, you don't need it. Who are you to tell me I don't need it? It's mine.
Right. The true philosophical answer to me is like, no, it's yours. They can suck it.
All right. So I'm with you. Here's the thing.
They need to give you. They need to present a number large enough for you to sell it. That's whoever it is.
So
I'm
no,
saying that's the only way that you should.
I've never done anything in my life for money, so there is no number you can give me, right. And I'm not going to take it. It's a matter of principle for me. I'm not going to take it. So, all right. So here's my suggestion. Here's what they're doing in Newark, New Jersey. They do it in New York City. They do it in most major cities. They offer incentives for you to build up. Well, I have 3 children, 3 small children. I have 2 small. What's the average? How many children do people have nowadays?
I think it's
young couples.
I think it's
1 or 2.
I think it's we are below replacement at this point.
0.7 children.
I think it's like 0.46 or something like that. Or I'm sorry, 1.46. It's 1 and some change. It's less than.
So when you get divorced, do you? Anyway, moving on.
You each get 0.76 kids. Yes.
All right. So what they're doing is they're building up. So I have small children. I want them to go to a good school, and I don't want them to have to ride an elevator for 40 stories to go to school. And they need grass, and they want a dog, and blah blah blah. People need to be able to choose where they live. So while the developers want to build and solve the problem of available housing, you have to build that housing, where you can build it, where it can be accommodated. You can't continue to build single-family homes within the city limits of Knox County, city of Knoxville. You just can't. If you have a piece of property and you want to subdivide it and you can build a single-family home, and I think you ought to be allowed to. But you have to be reasonable. There has to be a check and balance. You have to just look at it and say, what really makes sense, what's reasonable, what's fair. And if you're not doing that, people are trying to solve complex, large problems, and they're forgetting the individual rights property owners have and people have.
Right.
You don't have a right to a scenic view if you don't own that scenic,
I agree with
that property behind you.
Right.
You're not entitled to that.
I agree with that, yeah.
So, you were talking about the paper mill. Look, if there's a large vacant plot of land next to you and it's zoned residential, there's nothing that prevents a paper mill from going in there.
Right. Well, you'd have to have some water. Most paper mills are on a river or something like that. But yeah.
you understand what I'm talking about. Your government has the power to take everything you want.
Right. I mean, they take not most. They take a good chunk anyway in taxes. Get a couple more beers than me. I'll get real hard libertarian on you and tell you how much I don't like democracy.
Well, I think you like democracy.
I think I do too. But there is it's a valid thought experiment, for lack of a better word, to think about to just take democracy as an inherent good is a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for here? Is a little shallow, for lack of a better word. Like, it's just a little just to say, well, democracy is good. Well, it's not necessarily. It's better than, but the terrible analogy, but it's the thought experiment analogy is I want
it noted that I haven't made the comment about we're not a democracy, we're representing. I just want that noted.
I was saying,
I know what you mean.
Democracy,
just like you know what I mean when I say the Democrat Party.
Simple democracy says if there's 3 people in this room and 2 of us vote to kill the other one, it's not wrong.
Yeah, something I had a similar conversation the other day. And my concern right now
I think I did the same joke with Matt, and I said we'd kill the dog, but whatever. He didn't
something like that. Well, my concern now is that the way the lack of a better term, the loony left is working. I'm going to prison or a re-education camp or something. I have to be isolated from the rest of the public because I'm dangerous.
All right, you brought me there. I was going to leave it alone. No, I wasn't. I in general, you know me. I don't have a big agenda and how I go about things. But I did want to talk a little bit about the I can't ever say the word correctly. Compass Colliquil incident from a few weeks back. I screwed that word up. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That word. It's all right.
Okay, so let's put it this way. About a year ago, a little past a year ago, when we started doing the podcast, started digging around, I found out that Compass was one of the better sources I could find for some decent information about what's going on locally, because the News Sentinel sucks.
Scott and Jesse do a decent job,
right? And so
with the staff they have,
right, which is who you just listed. Apparently, they got a guy in Nashville that's writing for him for some state stuff, which is
he called.
Handy.
He called me. It was an interesting conversation.
But and so they're doing their thing and whatever, and for me getting deeper into this, having a good solid source is something I need to get after. And so I became a member, and I didn't realize I had a Facebook group until a couple months after I was a member, or I had a subscription or whatever. So again, they're doing my thing for just checking it out and whatever. And I will wholly acknowledge that especially as the not A or B person that I am, I'm not a left or right or whatever. There is a slant to that group, and that's fine. I'm not judging that. It's just very clear that there's a slant there. And I didn't even know you remember until about 2 weeks ago.
It's a little more than 2 weeks ago, but that's okay.
was right before the Board of Health thing, right after anyway. And so you put the Kid Cannon story out or whatever. And like, it was just like, it felt out of character it felt out of character to the Randy that I thought I knew. Like, it just felt like so just like, like it didn't feel out of character in the sense that like it wasn't out of character in the sense that the story used some of the words and phrases and some of the just some of the GOP right wing kind of stuff that's out there. Then that's fine. That sounded like Randy, but just it was like what, 2 or 3 posts in like 2 days out of nowhere, and it's like, again, I was like I didn't think Randy existed. I didn't know he would remember the group. And then there was the whole separate conversation about whether you should or shouldn't still be in there because you're not a subscriber anymore. That's up to Scott and Jesse. That's their business, not mine. But like, it was just it was kind of fun for me in the sense that I could see I see the slant that already exists. Like, I enjoyed it on some level because I knew the slant was there, and as soon as you posted that, me being neither saw that as uh-oh, here we go. And then uh-oh, here we went, and it went. But at the same time, it's just like it also was like, did somebody else get Randy's Facebook group? I mean, Randy doesn't do Facebook a lot. Like, I mean, other than a handful of videos you did on the GOP shows, like you were not a Facebook person in my understanding of you.
No, I'm not.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's like pow, 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 and I was like, whoa, okay, here we go. Here's the show.
So I will full disclosure. It was a little out of character. The sharing of the information. No, I routinely share information and have with Jesse and Scott in the past. And we've talked about it, and we don't always agree, and that's fine. But we know when we don't agree, and we know how to handle it. So yeah, it was a little out of character, but full disclosure, how do I put? I guess I'll phrase it like this: this is a test of the emergency broadcast system. You know, there's nothing wrong with your TV set. You don't need to adjust it. You don't need to, you could turn off your radio if you want, and that's probably what you should do because we're just running a test. And all I wanted to do was test. I had a thought, a theory, and
you're gonna have to explain to me, like, what are we testing here?
I mentioned a minute ago that my concern is there are segments of the population right now that are hell-bent on eliminating opposing thought. And it doesn't matter, and it's not a right or wrong issue. It's not a right or left issue. It's an issue for all of us. We have all got to figure out how we can better communicate and pass information along to each other without making it a right or wrong issue. Again, there are a lot of things that are going to happen over the next 6 months, year, 4 years, 5 years. And my concern is if we don't identify now those among us that are willing to bridge that gap, we're gonna have bigger problems than we have right now. And all right, so that was part of it. I simply was trying to draw and identify specific individuals and what their buttons were, and I did that. And at the same time, I have a little fun.
Right, all right, even better for the kids out there listening. This is what we call a troll. It's called trolling.
I don't troll Compass.
No, you weren't trolling Compass.
Here, you were
trolling the specific people you were trying to identify because you got what you wanted out of it. You got the reaction. The chase was...
No, actually, I didn't get the reaction I wanted out of it. I would have preferred a level-headed, reasonable response. And that's not what I got. Because the information, there was nothing wrong with the information I provided.
Wanted versus expected. You got what you expected. but not what you were hoping for.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Because again, like I said, like I could agree that there is a lean to the populace that at least that's interactive on there, and that's one of the things that always comes to question to me. And it's one of the points you made a while ago when we were talking about. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, geez. You know, like Matt's really bad about it. He's not the only one, but he's just an example of like when we talk about stuff, he's like majority of this. Like he likes to, like he has this phrase where he says the majority of the city of Knoxville feels this way about it, and I was like,
no,
I need you to reference. I need the references for this. I need the poll. I need whatever it is that you're basing the statement off of. And I realized that doesn't exist. The polling doesn't exist. The reference, whatever it is, the you know, we'll take the Board of Health countywide for example, like. You know, like, and again, staying on the Compass part of it, the Compass was talking about there was a I'm sorry, in the colloquially there was a conversation about, you know, the small list of people or the small group of people that push the commission into dissolving the Board of Health, and it's like, what is this? Where are you? Where is this statement of small coming from? I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying I need some sort of backup on this. Yes, I agree that there was a small group of people that went to every commission meeting and took the public forum, and there were repeat people that came to every meeting and took the public forum and stuff like that. I get it. Todd Frohmeyer, like the dude a lot. He goes to almost every commission meeting and speaks in the public forum, not on the Board of Health issue, but he likes to make a point of things, and I truly respect that a lot for what he has a specific issue and he chases it. And he puts it out there. And to be honest to you listeners out there, he has a very good issue that he's making a point on, and we should probably pay a little bit more attention to what he's trying to clarify. But that's one person. That doesn't make it doesn't change whether it's an issue or not an issue, but it does change in the statement of saying, well, there are some people out there talking about this as an issue. It's like, no, there's one. It's Todd. He's the only one out there talking about this issue on the campaign financing thing. That's Todd's thing. And I appreciate him for that. I really do. But, you know, the point was the statement was made is that this small group pushed the commission to do this thing. And it implies that there is some sort of data set out there that I don't know of that people are referencing on how me and my neighbors feel about the masking situation. Because I can tell you from my experience of being out in it, because I got to be an essential worker and I got to work through the whole thing, which I guess is a bonus because I got my free money too. But
you got money?
Yeah,
I didn't.
I'm poor as shit, buddy.
I didn't get anything
because you make money.
I didn't get a nickel. I'm not so sure. Well, wait a minute. Hold on a second. I was impacted personally and professionally to a greater extent than you were because you weren't impacted. So why did you get money and I didn't?
Well, because the CARES Act and all the whatever the different names of them were stupid.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we were still in.
Oh no, I'm on
total
I'm on board
agreement.
They're like,
oh my gosh!
Like the
really?
the methods of this the debacle were that's a whole.
So people say, "Are you going to send your check back?" And I look at it and I'm like, "I didn't get a check."
I mean, even
and they go, "How did you not get it? Everybody got a check." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, everybody didn't."
Well, because they were hoping you were going to die and they didn't have to pay you.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of that anyway.
Anywho, that thing, and so that's become my new goal with the podcast. And I need your help listening out there to get there. Is that, you know, because again, I started this on the you made the point is like Compass will do their power polls every once in a while, and they're interesting. There's certain things to look at, but it's also a Compass power poll, which, you know, I don't know what their current subscription level is. I hope that I've helped boost it a little bit.
Okay, so I've done the power poll, and I know there's a list of people that are on them, and honestly, I don't put a whole lot of. Let me put it to you this way, and it's not because it's, you know, that power poll. I don't put a whole lot of stock in polls generally, because they're inaccurate and they're not an actual representation of much of anything. Anytime you go, there's a plus or minus 4 or 5 margin of error.
Right.
I'm looking at you going,
Well,
I think I'm a no.
But I mean, if you have
if you poll 5 people,
right,
and there's a plus or minus 5 margin of error,
that's a little bit different. But I mean, if you have, we got around 500,000 people in Knox County, or 200,000 ish in the city. If you did a poll where you had 25, 30,000 people in a citywide poll, that's a good number. If you're spreading out where in the city you're getting the demographics, it's not just I
think one of the things that I posted was about this very topic. The press is trying to reach more conservatives because they're finding that they're not winning the battle. Their narrative isn't working. Why do so many people disagree or feel like they're not being told the truth by the press? Not because you're not polling enough or not reaching enough people. It's because you're lying to the people.
But that's an aside. I get what you're saying, but
so you can poll all the people you want,
right?
But if you only poll people of a political, particular political persuasion, your results are going to be skewed.
Right, and I often I'm a big Rogan listener. You guys know that. And he often talks about, like, his distrust of polls in general, because it's like, who takes polls? I never get a poll. I've never gotten to do one. But I could see...
Tell him to call me. I'll get him on a list of polls.
That's
easy.
Well, if I could call Rogan, I wouldn't be sitting here with you, buddy. I'm sorry.
Wait a minute. When you get to be friends with Rogans, don't you forget me.
Now that I'll give you. But if I was on the plane, if I had Rogan's phone number and he answered, I'm probably not doing this in my basement right now.
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
The point is, like, I guess my point is that, like, we don't even have a good functional version of that, regardless of the bent part of it. We just don't have a source that has any sort of credibility, in the sense that we did a poll. We polled Knox County residents on X. Like, we polled Knox County residents on Board of Health. Now, I guess we're going to get a little bit of a play with that in the 22 election, but by 22, I don't know how much that's going to apply. Because the Board of Health conversation is going to be, so it will be brought back up, obviously, but it's going to be so far into hindsight that hopefully we're past this thing and we can go on with our lives. But
I really haven't weighed in publicly on the whole Board of Health issue. I have an understanding of what the Knox County Board of Health is responsible for, what it does. I have an understanding of the laws that are in place that give the government the authority and the ability and why they do what they do as it relates to public health. I am in the at-risk population. Over the course of the past 15 months, I've had occasion to interact with thousands of people. And generally speaking, when they made mask wearing a requirement, I didn't question the legality of it, and whether you want to argue the point or not. I didn't, only because I don't have the bandwidth to go and lead that charge. I had other things I was focused on and concerned about. I really was not at any time concerned about my personal well-being, my health, or catching COVID and dying.
Right.
And I'm still not. Do I believe wearing a mask did anything to adjust the issue of COVID? No, I don't. And quite frankly, given some of the conversations that and public statements that were made by people that were supposed to be making those decisions, it tells me it was nothing more than it's one of the ways that we can keep the public from panicking.
Right.
We don't have a handle on this, but
right.
If you do this,
like we're doing something.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and here we are, 15 months later, and we know a lot more, and I've read some of what the University of Tennessee has published at length. I mean, there's a lot of information that came from just the University of Tennessee, and what I found very curious is Why is our health department not focused on that information? They're still banging the drum. Close down, wear a mask. We're shutting your business down. We're doing this, but yet at the same time, everything's free and easy. In this business, it was disingenuous at best.
Right.
Yes, the public could very well have panicked, but we didn't handle it well. And as far away from the critical or crisis point that we've come, we're still not handling it well. Your government is spending money advertising on every medium. I'm surprised they haven't contacted you about.
I'm disappointed. I would take that money.
About the different strains of the virus, et cetera, et cetera. I am in no way, shape, form, or fashion minimizing the impact that virus has had. The lethality for certain segments of the population has been horrible. But
they're old and worthless anyway. So you still got value. That's why it didn't kill you.
Yeah, no. So quite frankly, I, as it relates to the commission's decision, I think, I really don't have any thoughts on it. I think our health department, the director of the Department of Health, did an abysmal job. I think she could have done much more, and I think she is punching above her weight class, quite frankly. And when it comes to the Board of Health, so we have a health department and a Board of Health. When it comes to the Board of Health, so much of what I heard a Board of Health member opine publicly, oh, well, I went to Sevierville and nobody was doing this, and we're going to have to punish these people until they do what we tell them. My first thought was, if you're the guy making decisions about my health, you're not the right guy. You've got an employee in the health department that was making similar public statements. These are not the people that should be making decisions about our health. We need qualified, unbiased, nonpartisan professionals making those decisions outside of political rhetoric. Once they've conducted all the quote-unquote science, then you present that to the people that are responsible for responding to a public health crisis. And who is that?
Well, because one of the issues I have with it in the long term of it is like I can understand getting a little shell shock, for lack of a better word. This thing came on fast. We didn't know what we were doing. We're freaking out. Blah blah blah. I can get on that. But as far as like the day to day, the punished, as you mentioned, is I think that's an elected body's requirement, not even an appointments requirement. This goes on all levels, and it's stuff that already exists outside of the situation. Because one of the problems to me is that it is unclear to me, as I understand it, on whether these powers that the Board of Health had, or even Dr. B has, Buchanan. Sorry, I'm not friends with her. I need to call her Dr. Buchanan. Is under the state of emergency issue. And that's one of the problems I can't wrap my head around. It's like, I don't really feel like it's fair to call what we live in right now an emergency. We've been doing this for 15 months, just like you said. It's not an emergency anymore after 15 months. First couple months, we're freaking out. We don't know what we're doing. Okay, it's an emergency. I will give a little bit of room for error because it's a panic situation. I'll let that go. But 10, 12, 15 months later, it needs to be in the hands of an elected body just because it's not an emergency anymore. This is life now. Because we can,
Well, it was life from the beginning. And again,
I agree, but
at
least
the negative impact overall to society is something that we may never recover from. And that is the result of the lack of science, the lack of application of science. And you know, okay, so people are going to hear this, or somebody's going to take a piece of this and go, "Oh my gosh, he is crazy. We need to go lock him up." Yeah, you think you're laughing.
No, I
brother, I'm telling you right now, it matters who governs. I'm telling you, it is a function of government to declare a state of emergency when one exists. And at the same time, I said it before, the government has the authority. We live in a society where we have a government and we answer to that government. Ultimately, you know, I answer to a higher power. That's all. Ultimately, that's who I answer to. But that higher power says I have to submit to my government. So
give under Caesar. Yeah.
It's, again, let's be honest. Without it, what do we have? Anarchy. And I'm not willing to live in. Come on, look. If you think in the good graces of mankind, forget it. We are demons.
The problem is, I don't disagree with you on that, but the problem is we are demons.
It matters who governs,
and demons govern.
All right. Well, guess what? Demons are not allowed to govern inappropriately because it's incumbent upon all of us to do what? Don't expect and inspect.
And we suck at it, and that's the problem.
And they want us to suck at it.
Right, and since it's so complicated, there's no incentive for them to fix the complications to make it easier for us to inspect, not expect what's going on. I mean, again, like I didn't mean to bring it full circle. I'm not that good at what I do here, but I mean that's we were talking about that. I know I did fine. I'm bragging on myself right now.
Yeah.
Shut up and let me talk. But I mean, like, yeah, it's just like, you know, I mean, I don't. Like I said, I don't know where I sit on the whole what's the right play and or the science and all that kind of mess part of it is, but it's just, to me, it's the ability to give over an authority to another that you wouldn't otherwise do is what I can't wrap my head around. Like I worded that poorly. Like that you give the ability to give over the authority to govern others because you agree with what the authority does. But then when the authority switches and goes to you, you feel like you can govern yourself. And it's like, well, which one? You got to be consistent on it. And that's the libertarian argument to me, is that it's like the assumption is that the assumption of the libertarian is that the personal responsibility, and this is where some of the libertarianism lines up with the republicanism, is it's that personal responsibility. You tend to you. And what you don't do is tell somebody else how to tend to themselves. And that's where I get stuck in this situation. It's like, I get it. Like there is a public health issue at play, and there is this kind of things. But at the same time, to me, this is more about, like you were saying, is that this is more about a trust in media, a trust in government as a whole, to be honest about what they're doing. And maybe they were. That's the problem. Fauci could have been correct, which he wasn't, and he lied about different stuff, and he admitted to lying about different stuff. But even if he was right from the beginning, he is the head of an organization that has decades of mistrust behind them, that is a subsidiary of another organization that is in the cabinet of the United States, that goes from however many presidents we've had that have sucked at their job too, and all that kind of different stuff that we've had decade after decade after decade. And people like to pretend like they trust their government and stuff like that, but when it comes down to brass tacks, they only trust them when they agree with them. And when they don't agree with them, it's they're liars and they're bullshit and it's fake and all this other kind of other thing. It doesn't matter which side of the tape you're on or whatever. That's just the way we play the game. And that's the problem. The problem is that we want the government there, and we want them to do the things that they're doing when it's our version of it. And when it's not our version of it, they're the worst thing ever, and we're hiding from it. And again, it's the personal responsibility thing. Is I don't think, like, whatever the issue is, I don't think that I have the authority to tell you how to deal with that situation. I know how I want to deal with that situation, but my way might not be your way, and I'm okay with that. Short of a very small list of very basic Ten Commandment style things like don't kill your neighbor, I'm pretty much past that. I'm like, whatever. I don't care.
Okay, let me ask you this then. So let's say that we live in a community. There's literally 3 houses. Okay? And a sinkhole opens up. All our driveways meet at the same spot. Sinkhole opens up.
So our driveways only go into each other's driveways?
Well, no.
We're in a cul-de-sac. We're in a circle. Right,
so we can't, none of us can get out because of this sinkhole. You run a paving company, a construction company. I'm the local baker, and our other neighbor runs a liquor store. Who's fixing the road?
We're getting drunk, we're eating bread, and nobody's fixing the road.
All right, so now I don't even know how to respond to that other than I want to be your neighbor.
I mean, maybe in a couple of weeks I'll get around to fixing the.
But you get my point, right? So, well, that's a big job. As far as I'm concerned, you're gonna get free donuts for life.
No,
and
you got to be consistent. Donuts are not a baked good. It's a fried pastry. It's not a baked good. You were talking about a baker, not a donut maker. I didn't mean to rhyme that either. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, you're
so the other guy's going to be a butcher if that's okay.
Sure. We got steaks and bourbon, and I fixed the road.
Yeah,
I get it. And then the problem is that we don't necessarily need to communally get drunk, but we do communally need the meat.
But see, that's the basic premise of our government. It is. That was its original intent. Because, hey, there are people out there that will do us harm. We need to gather together, and we need to shoot at them, rather than shoot at each other. So that's the basic premise for our government. And where did we go awry? We just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and with a larger population and more diversity came bigger and bigger problems. I don't hate anyone, or I hate everyone equally. I don't care how you look at it. If you're a friend of mine, you're going to say, Randy doesn't hate anyone. If you don't like me, Randy hates everyone. There's something wrong with Randy. So I agree with what you're saying, but it just isn't the case. And I think more often than not, it's not the case for most people. So what do? Stop having those conversations where we're, telling lies and kicking the snot out of each other and not working towards, some common goal. And beyond that, I don't want to see you. Leave me alone. I want to live my life. I'd much rather spend my time with, people I like rather than people I disagree with and have to battle over how to get something done.
Because I think one of the problems is, and I think that we've been, because I was in the bar game for a long time, and that was one of those, early on when I was a green ear server or whatever, the old timer bartenders would always, talk about. I was like, we don't talk politics. We don't. It's an over dramatized version of the reality.
Got it.
But it's like we don't talk politics. We don't talk religion. That's not. We don't let that happen here. That's what it always causes more fights. And it's like, well, I think we need to have those fights.
Yeah.
I think we need to bring back the normalization of being able to force, not to force talk about it, but at least to be able to talk about it so that it doesn't end up in fights all the time because it becomes a rarity. There's a great story about my day job, what I do. So 2 guys that work together for the same company, were working in the same location, and I wasn't there at the time, but I came shortly after. And they were working, doing their jobs next to each other, and somehow they started talking about religion and ended up having a fist fight in a grocery store, in the beer section of a grocery store, over religion while they're working. Because and again, it goes back to the why that saying still flies in the bars. Is like if you're a bartender, you never engage in it, and you pay a lot of attention to people that are talking religion or politics at the bar, but you never engage in it. I when employed in it, I agreed with the premise of it because it was true. It was for me. It was Hooters girls, politics, and religion in that order that caused the most fights in the bars that I worked in.
So nothing I hate more than a drunk man when I'm sober and a sober man when I'm drunk. Same,
Right.
It's the same premise. It doesn't have to be politics or religion. It can be anything, if alcohol is involved. And
but
just a disagreement.
Yeah, but it's one
And
of those,
where do most disagreements occur?
Right, politics and religion. And so I don't know, but that's one of the things I think needs to go away. I think we need to actually have real conversation again instead of the automatic, shit throwing kind of debacle that is what's left of political discourse anymore. I mean, it's like, and it's funny to me because like I get to sit here and I get to talk to different people, and like there's little lobs that people throw out through me, like enough people are listening to notice it, and it's like, why do we I don't know, which again, like I'm happy to do it.
It's fun.
I'm gonna pad the walls.
I do it out of jest more often than not.
I mean, I'm gonna pad the walls a little more, and we'll have some debates in here and make sure nobody gets hurt when they get thrown against the wall or anything. I mean, I'll officiate some wrestling matches. We got the video now, so it'll be extra fun. I can get you on tape punching somebody in the face, but I don't know. It's just
happened. Well, something similar happened to. Never mind.
I just think again, like there's. And again, it's part of what you're not the chair anymore, so I'm not going to yell at you about it. But it's one of the things that part of the game of playing politics. Because one of the epiphanies I think I had a couple months ago is, and you'll probably agree with this. One of the epiphanies is that what I'm in this for is government. What I'm doing this for is understanding my government, how my government works.
Yeah, you've said that from the outset.
But I think from the outset, I didn't understand that the government and politics are separate entities.
Mm-hmm.
They rely on each other to function, or maybe not rely on each other to function. They exist because they exist. They exist in. Yeah,
one would not exist without the other.
Right.
Sure,
that's what I was trying to. Yeah, that's a better way of saying what I was saying. And so, like, that's the thing that I'm like. I play the politics part to deal with the governance. The politics is an annoyance to me to understand the governance. And
man, how do you think I feel?
I mean, you are actively engaged in the politics by immediate past chair status and chair status. I don't like the politics. I hate the politics.
But you've had Matt and I right here in the same room. And everything was fine.
If we hit the right note, you guys will go at it pretty hard, and that's fine.
Well, wait a second. On air, yeah, maybe. Off air, we can talk about some of the things. And actually, we did the one time we were here. We actually sat out back and...
I had to kick you out because I had to go to bed.
Yeah, we were talking about something, and we were at opposite ends of the spectrum, and I was begging him, where's the middle ground? Tell me where the middle ground is. And he made it, one of the statements that we both have made. And I said, Matt, I'm being sincere, and you're giving me... party line. That's not what I asked. So, and we didn't resolve it then. So long story short, you're right. I believe we can set the politics aside if there are not other eyes on us. Now we run the risk of, you're doing things behind closed doors.
No, but the reality is to me, it's an education, but it's more of it's the bigger reality of that exact statement is that there's an education issue. It's that it's an education issue of the public in general to be able to consume a political conversation and understand the parts and pieces.
You realize that really is the number one function of both parties. And too many people in both parties have gone away from that. That really is our function.
Well, but what my problem is that the history that I have seen and what it appears to be the history is going to continue is the politics is of the education is of who the enemy is, not who I am.
All right, so before we started talking about the postings on social media, I had mentioned we were talking about academics, and I had mentioned that there are people in academia that are brilliant, and I think they should be making those decisions about those things that they're brilliant on. And I was actually thinking of somebody specifically, and I'm not going to name him because I don't want to embarrass him. I don't want to give anybody, huh?
Rhymes with?
No. So only because I don't want to put him at odds with people that he routinely communicates with. I don't want to put him in a bad spot. I'll reach out to him privately, and next time you and I see each other, I'll tell you who it was. But essentially, the guy is a professor at UT, brilliant, professionally, but and has openly said, "Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, you taught me something I didn't know." Well, okay, so, but he in turn taught me something I didn't know, and only because I haven't lived in Knoxville my entire life. So we had an exchange, and while we may not agree about this, that, or the other thing, we had a reasonable exchange. I don't know how else to put it. I think that people that may be vehemently opposed to each other politically on one particular issue or another will find that there is far more that they can agree on than they can disagree on.
I mean, I agree, and I think I think 9 times out of 10 it comes down to the goals are agreeable. It's the how to get to the goals that usually charges the most.
Affordable housing is one of the things that really galls me more than anything because we spend way more money on it than we should. I think everybody ought to be able to buy their own damn home. But the reality is that ain't going to happen.
Right.
Just not. Well, that's a problem you can't fix. And anybody that disagrees with me is probably part of the problem. They don't have they don't have an understanding on how it all works. There are people that will never own a home. There are people that will never earn a college degree. There are people that will never stop smoking crack. Do we need to spend all our time and treasure? Do you need to take money from other people to fix that problem? You can't fix that problem. Why are you trying? There are people that are right there. If they could just get over this hump, they could own a home. They could get off crack. Let's focus on them. Let's not focus on 100. You're never going to reach perfection. You're just not going to do it. Why are you trying? You're kidding yourself. And by the way, at the same time, you're bankrupting the rest of us by doing it.
All right. Okay. All right. So
sorry,
you're good.
Long-winded.
You're good. Sorry. So I don't know. That one went a little above my head, to be honest. Like I get the skeleton of what you're getting at there, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm running out of things. I mean, I'm not running out of things. We could talk for 5 hours. I know.
Oh wait.
I know
so, what might be exciting? Let's see.
And we got the city race coming up, and the Herrera had made, and yourself in the meeting that I got to go to, which was kind of fun. Are you going to the kickball game?
What kickball game?
Or softball game?
What softball game?
All right. You need to talk to Herrera about it.
Daniel doesn't tell me the fun stuff.
Apparently,
he asked me the tough questions.
Matt was telling me there was a red-blue kickball or softball game coming up here in a couple weeks.
A couple weeks?
In the for countywide elected officials, political party people, softball game here.
All right,
late
so
April.
let me ask you something. I played all Navy softball. Look. Really? I had no idea.
Huh, all right.
I have talked to them. Yeah, I'm an old man. They want young people.
I mean, I'm just going to go in glad hand and give out cards and try to get more guests. So,
hey, speaking of guests, so there's a whole list of city council candidates. Where are you at with that? Who's being a stick in the mud?
I mean, I got a couple people lined up. We're waiting. Most people, the handful I've talked to so far, want to wait till May. I don't know what that. Maybe that means something to you. Where May is where they still really start rolling into.
All right.
Campaign mode.
All right. So here's the deal. You have petition pickup and then you have the filing deadline, and then you have the deadline to withdraw. So there's 3 different dates.
Right.
And the real hard date isn't until late May. So.
Yeah. So that's what the handful I've talked to so far are giving me kind of very phrase that. The handful I've talked to so far that aren't currently seated are kind of like, let's wait till we get closer to summer where it gets into more full campaign mode and they want to use it as whatever.
All right. So here's what I will commit to. Any one of them, regardless of political stripe, any of them that won't commit, when they, at some point in May, or you're having difficulty reaching or whatever, tell me who it is. I'll encourage them to come on, only because you've always treated me very well. I like what you're doing. I applaud you for what you're doing, and I think everyone that has any interest in seeing better government in not just the city and county of Knox, state of Tennessee, and nationally, hey, this is a great place to get information. You're going to hear stuff on here that you're not hearing at a commission meeting or a city council meeting or a school board meeting.
See, what I should do is I should chop that out, but then it's you, and then I divide the audience by using you as it. Because all right, so all right, here's a good way to close off. We're approaching 2 hours anyway. Right. So we talked a couple days ago. We said we scheduled this. We said we're going to do it or whatever. And so early this afternoon, I did a regular show with the normal crew. And after that, I was working that one out, and I got on our Facebook page for the Almost an Agreement on Facebook. If you're not following, do that kind of thing. And I did a post. I said, hey, I'm going to have Randy. We're going to go live on YouTube. I'm playing with my new toys and trying to test some of the systems, which apparently we got cut off about 40 minutes ago on the YouTube thing. Podcast part's still going for that side of it. So, but we're not live on YouTube anymore. Whatever. So I shared it into the colloquially. I can't say that fucking word. Like, it just kills me. Anyway, I shared it into there, and I got a couple comments of like, why would I watch that? It's like, what do you mean? Why would you watch that?
You wouldn't.
You should.
Nah.
Like,
don't have to.
Because I mean, I honestly, I forgot.
Everybody needs a boogeyman.
That's fine, but you still need to know what it is. And that was my joke back. It's like, why would I need that in my life? It's like, I don't know your enemy. I don't know, whatever. Like, know who you're talking, like, because I think I like, it's intentional on my part. Like, one of the few things I'll pat myself on the back for is, one, I know I'm an idiot, and so I'm going to play I'm going at the information knowing that I don't know things. And I think that's one of those things that, I'll brag on myself. I think that's one of the things that is a big issue with a lot of people is that they like to feel like they know everything, and so
I'm dumb as a box of rocks.
But as I'm saying, they jump on it, and they've got their little nugget of information, and that's the truth, and they're going with it, and you can't tell them otherwise, and that's a problem. I think people that are stuck in that whatever information they already have is the only information that exists, that's a problem. But at the same time, I think unwillingness to even begin to listen, automatically saying no because a certain person is speaking, is a terrible way to look at things. And especially if you were adamant about it. If you were adamant about an issue and you're not willing to listen at all to any extent because you already know what they're going to say, that's a problem. And then the other side too, and I get it for the listeners out there that can't make it through a 2-hour episode. I get it, but that's why I do long form. I do long form with the intent of that. I could try to shove everything I want to talk about with people in 15 minutes, but you're going to get tiny little bits, and you're not going to get any depth to it, and you don't really get to know anything. You just get to know soundbite stuff. And that's not the way we can function as people. I understand that there's a limited time you have to do it. That's more why I want to do podcasts.
That's part of the problem we have, the problems we have. People are not taking enough time.
Yeah. And so, and again, then the podcast format's so stupid easy. You put it on, do your dishes, put it on, do the laundry, put it on, mow the lawn, put it on while you're driving to the grocery store. You don't have to just sit down and get all 2 hours in one stint. I mean, I've got, like Rogan, like I said, I'm a big Rogan fan, and most of his episodes are 3 hours. Most of them. Some of them are like 5 or 6. And I don't listen to a 6-hour episode straight. I mean, I'll listen to an hour driving from here to there, and then I'll put it away and I'll pick it back up.
The amount of time I used to spend listening to talk radio, if I can't, podcasts don't have commercial interruptions.
Right. Well, brother, they might. If things go right, they will. But
but brother, I'm telling you right now, even the good ones they try and limit it. You're still getting
right. And the thing with the podcast is when you're listening to it while you're driving to the store, when you get out of the car, it stops. And then when you get back in the car, it starts where it stopped. It's not like radio where, God, I need to go to the bank right now, but I want to let Hannity finish his rant because I want to hear what he's got to say about this, or or Shapiro or whoever it is you listen to on the radio. I want to hear this part, but I really got to pee right now. So
I've been late
what do
for
I do?
stuff.
Because you want to sit out there and fish. Now that being said, there's been podcasts that I've listened to where I pulled in the driveway. And I know it stops and I can start it right back up. But I've sat in the car and for 10 minutes in the driveway to finish a podcast. Now, that's just me being like super wanting to hear the rest of it. It's not that I'm going to lose it if I don't do it now. Right. And that's one of the things about the podcast format. They're like, and even with the YouTube format, it's a little bit less consumable that way. But as I'm trying to grow it into some of the other things we're doing, I do want to get the format. I do want to practice the format to get the video in there because it's more personable for some, it gets you get to see the more people, especially in the candidate stuff when we're going through this election cycle. And then there's a whole subset business thing that I'm working on, and I'm trying to use this to practice for that. But again, I think the long form is important. I think there's, I'm full disclosure. I'm a Rogan fan, and I'm copying the format for a local version of a politics thing, which he doesn't do politics and he doesn't do local, but I'm basing mine off his format, and he's one of the biggest podcasts out there. And I don't equate myself to him at any level other than I wholly agree with the long form. I think the long form is what's missing. We've been trained to try to consume in nuggets and little nibbles and this, that, and the other, and it doesn't work for people. And if you think about it, like, what are the best shows on TV? Or like, what are the best shows out right now? TV is not the right word, but what are the shows that everybody watches on TV right now that everybody gets all excited and talks about? Game of Thrones.
Never seen it.
I know you're biblically old. We were making that joke again, but Game of Thrones, which is like 9 seasons, each episode's like an hour and some change long, and people will binge watch, hours and hours and hours and hours of the show. Like me and the wife are watching Westworld right now. 45 hour and 15 minute long episodes, 10 season episodes, whatever. Huge, big, giant, overarching storylines that go on for episode after episode. But we were trained as younger people that it's 30 minutes or 45-minute shows. That's all you got.
So, full disclosure, my wife and I no longer have cable television.
I don't either.
Streaming.
I haven't had it for.
And we just finished. And this is the other thing. I don't remember names. To me, they're irrelevant. The name of the show, the actor's name, what his dog's name, all of that's irrelevant. Is it entertaining? And it was. It was about con artists.
On who? Or on Amazon?
No, on Netflix, I think. But
Ozarks?
No. It was excellent. A woman marries 3 different people and leaves them, takes all their money, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was excellent. It was 2 seasons. There were like 5-6 episodes a season, something like that. And
yeah, see, you're doing about you.
My wife finds these.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, is Andy Griffith on?
But I'm saying, like, we were raised. We were both. I mean, even me, younger than you, but not that much younger, or whatever. We were raised on this ad model TV format.
Yeah.
That we have these 30-minute chunks, and in that 30-minute chunk, there's a total of 8 minutes of ads. So there's 22 minutes of show, and so like the arc of the story has to be super quick. And then really, Sopranos was the one that broke the game. Sopranos was the one that went, we're doing hour-plus long episodes, and we're doing multiple characters that are going all the different ways, and all these it's super complex and all this stuff. And like Jordan Peterson, one of the guys I listen to, another podcast I listen to, like he equates it. It's like the new Netflix style show that we get to see a lot now is more equatable to books, because you get a good book, you have a lot of characters and a lot of different moving pieces, and then they all come together in the end. Where in a normal movie format, which was our old version of books, is only 2.5 hours. You couldn't get all those storylines interwoven and do all that stuff in 2.5 hours, but now we get 10, 15 hours. Yeah. And so the long form podcast is to me, for me, especially on the politics side and the governance side, the long form podcast is the book version of that, which makes me feel like I'm smarter than I am, but it's probably not true.
So So here's the story I would like to write in that long form. 5 years from now, we come back. It's a completely different conversation. We laugh about where it was back in the beginning. And we've made, and I say we, because I think you're committed to, increasing the public's understanding. Increasing your own, obviously, but increasing the public's understanding, because that really is the only way we're going to fix this. We got a lot of problems, and it's going to take more people pulling in the same direction.
I mean, yeah, because I think, like you like to say all the time, it matters who governs. And we, I got on Matt Shears last week. It's like, I don't know that if I'm, I used to be one of those that's like, well, I voted, so I did my duty or whatever. It's like anymore, it's like, I don't know if that's good enough. Just voting is not enough. You gotta have some thought into who you're voting for. It's not a D or an R. It's not a my neighbor or whatever. It's a who's the right person for the job. And most importantly, what is the actual job? What is the job supposed to be? And is the person that you're selecting a person who's going to do the job they're supposed to do? Now, there's different options on how to go about said things, and that's what you should be voting on. But the fact that 9 out of 10 people probably, I joke earlier about we throw stats out and don't have any data to prove it, and this is what I'm going to do right now. I would argue that a large majority of the people that vote in city, county, state, and federal elections don't know the job they're voting on. And this, and I feel like I need to start now on the 22. We got clerks, and we got judges, we got DAs, and we got DAs a little easier, but we got 60 something things that coming up on this ballot. We got a bunch of state level stuff coming up on this 2022 ballot. And I don't know what these people do and what they're supposed to be doing. And I assume that I'm fairly normal, or at least I was fairly normal before I got as far as I've gotten so far. But I don't think people know what a clerk does. I don't think people know what a property assessor does realistically. Oh, they tell you how much your house is worth. No, they don't. They tell you how much you're going to get taxed on your fucking house. It's a whole different animal.
That's right.
But those kind of things, like I don't think people know what they're voting for. Forget the person that they're voting for. I don't think they know what the job is. And that, I think, is the number one problem that we have right now, is we don't know what the job is supposed to be. We don't know what the clerks do. We don't know what the DA does. We don't know what the public defender does. We don't know what the law director does. We had this whole conversation last year about who the law director is and why it should be voted or appointed or all that whole debacle. We don't know what they do. Like I'm not even sure I know what the mayor does.
I think that I need to put you in touch with the people at Leadership Knoxville.
Okay.
And they need to plug you into one of their leadership classes, and they need to do it gratis. You should not have to pay the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 that it costs to go to that class. And I'll tell you why. Because what you're doing, they're already doing on some level for an entirely different reason, and they're drawing in people that can afford to drop that kind of coin to do what you're going to spend years doing. Here's the difference. They're going to get the short format. They're going to get a 10-minute spiel from the mayor directly what he does. And then he's going to walk out the door. There's not going to be any follow-up conversation. You're going to know more in a longer period of time about how it actually works, but they're the ones that are going to get elected to public office.
Right.
So, and I think if you went and you got that perspective, it would help you do exactly what it is you're trying to do. Right. It'll help you along in that process.
All right, I'm in.
Yeah.
All right. So we did a show, everybody. Buttons and stuff. All right, so this 2 weeks in a row where I've had to cut episodes short because I had to pee real bad. So, ready pace, everybody. Like him or not, hate him, whatever you want to do. That's your business. He's an interesting person. He knows what's going on. He's somebody to talk to. And if you're not willing to listen, that's not my fault. That's yours. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Website's live. I think we got chunked out there. We had some bandwidth issues, so the full video might not be on there, but I'll post the podcast in the podcast version on the YouTube page as well. But I mean, like we got to the end there. It's like we are voting these people in to do a job, and if we don't know what the job is, then how can we pick the right person for the job? It's that simple. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. That's, you know, I joke about the complications, I joke about all that kind of stuff. I just want to figure out what's going on, who these people are, why they're doing what they're doing. Maybe not why, but how they have the authority to do what they're doing, that kind of stuff. And, you know, I'm not going to learn any of that if I turn my ears off because I don't like what the person talking has to say. So I'm going to listen and I'm going to learn, and you should too. Thank you. Good night, everybody.